promotes growth. So they will, these will bloom in the spring, and if they're reblooming, they'll bloom again even after that. So this is what we have. This is some of the stuff that we have up here. We have a wide selection of other things as well. I think are these the pseudochorus again,
yeah, they are.
Yeah, this is what is it? Tell us.
Roy Davidson.
Roy Davidson, which is a hybrid of a pseudochorus. And it's a little bit more controlled than the regular one you see that takes over swamps and stuff. It does, I kid you not. I think I told you that my aunt and grandmother backed up to Laurel Creek, you know where it is, in back of Laurel Street in Santa Cruz, and it goes down to Neary Lagoon. And Neary Lagoon, I mentioned that again, is that the pseudochorus was driving out the tules, because it was an invasive, non-native species, and it was just killing off the tules. That's how virulent the damn thing is. It's hard, but this is not pseudochorus, it's a hybrid. It's a little bit more controlled. We also will have a whole wide selection here. Charlie, you brought us a bunch. Tell us what you have. Just tell us.
Well, I just brought some that I don't know the names of, but they have a 1 on them, or 2, or 3, so you know you get a variety. But I have pictures of what they are, but I don't know which one is which. But they came from Joe. And if he doesn't recognize them, they're a seedling.
Oh, there we go.
So that's what you have.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things, Charlie was very neat and good. You notice what he did. He clipped them all at the top, like this. Well, I'm behind because we had starting at the end of September, the first 2 weeks of October, it was in the 80s every single day, and a couple of the days was even 96 and 97 in Santa Cruz. And that is no time to try to dig these things up. And I have customers in the Pacific Northwest who expect them early. And early is like in August. Well, I'm nowhere ready to do anything in August, and they just got to struggle and live with it. I have one who won't order anymore because I won't send them to her with roots on them in August. Well, it's just not going to happen. Anyway, all right. Now, what I have here is what I do every time. This is a Reselect seedling. This has had no water at all, other than what it got in the spring. All right? So now it will, and that's the only sample one I have up here. And what we have, you can see there is no indication of any roots on them because it hasn't had any water, and the water sort of triggers the growth mechanism, which is setting out roots. And that's fine, they'll grow well. Now, I did not start watering mine because I was kind of busy until maybe a few weeks ago. But you see, even a little bit of watering sends the roots out pretty quickly. You see them there? Those are the nice new roots. And actually, at a point like this, it's really almost the best time to get them, is when the roots are not way out, because then you're going to make the plant go through a lot of shock in digging it up, and the roots are all over the place, and they're kind of useless to it. But this is an optimum time to dig them up. And these have I watered them once or twice with by hand sprinkler, that's all. And that's how quickly they will start growing. So once you get these, be sure to give them, oh, that's the other thing. If you get any of these tonight, and you probably will because there are plenty of them, before you go to bed tonight, put them in a bucket of water. Got that? Because they don't like to be out, they can't really handle being out of some kind of moisture for a period of time. That's true not true of most every other iris, but these need that water. So don't forget to do that. All right, now if you have an old clump, this is a 2-year clump. All right, and what it did is I planted one of those, just one of these, just a single one, even a little one like this. See? And in 2 years, it depends on the variety, you can get a big old clump like this. Now, 2 years is sort of the optimum time to, when they bloom at their best, because they're not overcrowded and everything else. and I've showed you this before, but you can see all the bloom it had. You see all the dried stalks and all the dead, growth and all that kind of stuff. So this had, I don't know, maybe anywhere from 7 to 10 probably blooms on it. Now the first year you won't get that. The first year, obviously you're not going to get a whole bunch of bloom like that, but you're going to get maybe one, but you should get at least one, and often 2 or 3, so it's not that unusual. Now when you replant, as I indicated to you before, it's very simple. You just dig up the plant and you just pull it apart. That's a division, and that's what you plant. And the reason you clip it is basically it looks neater, but it also, this part will sort of dry back anyway, and it's better if you just cut it off, as you do most every other kind of iris anyway. So that's all there's to it. And be sure to keep track. Well, if you're a connoisseur, you keep track. If you're not, you don't give a damn. Of what varieties you have. And my rule is that I don't label my stuff, except at the ranch a little bit, but I have a chart. So I chart everything once it's planted, so I can refer to it. That's how I keep track of what I have. At the ranch, I do have labels. I just write on little Venetian blinds. You can go to these, window dressing places. They usually have leftovers, and they'll almost give them to you. And you just cut them up in what kind of label you want. But always use a pencil, a number 2 pencil for writing on the Venetian blind, or anything you're going to write on. Because if you use like these, the Sharpie pens, it fades. So use, and the pen, not any pen, the pencil won't fade. And that's for anything you label. Yes?
I get extra soft lead. You can buy them in any stationery store or any place. But if you get the extra soft, it's a fatter lead than the pencil, and it really makes a dark. It's really great for marking.
Yeah, and there was for the dahlias too, they had, I can't find them where it's ink in a bottle, and it's a pen, it's a pencil, and it's permanent. In other words, you can write on it and put water on it. It's a laundry pencil, it's what it was, and it's just not available anymore. And it's until just a few years ago, it was a great thing to write on wet surfaces, whereas these other things you can't really write like a Sharpie and these things on something that's wet. Whereas you, on ink in a bottle, that's really the only way you can write on the thing. Yeah?
There is also the Brothers B-Touch. It's a little tape that you can just put it. It has a nice writing, and it costs you $20 for the machine, and you can just put names really nice on blue.
Yeah, well, there's, different things like that. So, any rate, it depends how fancy you want to be and all that good stuff.
You know what I use? I use a China marker, but I put it on the exposed part, and I put it on the one that goes on the ground.
Yeah.
That one on top sometimes fades,
Yeah.
but the one
In the ground doesn't.
That's right.
So you would do both ends.
Yeah.
Fred Valentine taught me that.
Oh, well, I never tried that.
I use a China marker.
In the good old days, I've been around so damn long, is that some people, this was a couple of sisters in Alabama, would save up their magnesium bottles, and they put a piece of paper with the name of the iris in the magnesium bottle and bury it in front of the iris. And I always, man, that's a lot of magnesium.
They must have only had about 10 hours.
Yeah.
I use old room cards.
The what?
Hotel room cards, old ones.
Okay.
And I write on them and then I bury them.
Okay. If it works, do it. But it's nice, for us connoisseurs, we got to know the name. We're just unhappy if we don't know the name. And you see what I'm doing here? I'm just talking and I'm just pulling these things apart.
So do you only plant one of those little?
I only plant,
start?
well, one per,
The
planting.
whole area?
It depends, if you're gonna keep them 2 years, you're gonna put them at least that far apart.
Okay.
Because you see how big it gets. I put them pretty close together and I keep everything for, can't say that. The selections for 2 years, because that's when I get the best performance that I make the evaluation on. And I put them in a row about that close together. And I get, you see, these will go on down the row that way. Okay,
You're preparing a special soil, you're planting these in, or you just stick them in the dirt?
in the dirt?
Special soil and you.
Oh, no, just regular old dirt, don't go through all that fancy stuff.
Fertilizer?
No, nothing.
Okay.
What you gotta do though is you gotta have something that's basically just slightly at the neutral or slightly acidic, very slight. If you don't, they're not gonna perform well. But most of our soil really is that, unless you start fooling around with it too much, which I have with the roses, and I had it down to 3.8, which means it was, the poor rose was sitting in an acid bath. And it wasn't happy at all. But that's my fault, because I kept putting Epsom salt and all that stuff over the year, and it began lowering the pH. And I found, to my surprise, I had to add, tons of ammonia sulfate, tons of nitrogen, tons of sulfur, and it did bring it up. And I had a trouble growing on my Rig Street plantings all the time. They were getting yellow. And finally, the year that I left, I had the soil under control. They were beautiful. And I left. I mean, it was my grandmother's place, and so on and so on. All right. Now, what else? Oh, fertilizer. Somebody's mentioning that. The only fertilizer I give them, I'm making a mess here. Well, we're going to pick it up. Here's how many, I'm going to put them over here you can have, but remember it's a seedling. Doesn't have a name. And I'm not telling you what number it is or anything like that. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 I got out of that clump. So that's how many I could, and I would plant them the way I showed you to do it. That's this pile in the center there by itself. All right, as with all the irises, it's very good if you can water them in right after you plant them. And there's a couple, the main reason for that, the dirt, if you work it up nicely, it's sort of powdery or it's loose, and it doesn't settle around the root area. And whereas if you water it in, the dirt will settle around the rhizome and the root, which may not happen if you don't water it in. Or you just try to do it, let your normal way with a drip system or whatever fancy thing you might have. So all the iris, well, that's not true, but at home at any rate, I plant bearded these, I put a little well around them, and then I put the water, and I hand water in every little well. And that makes sure the water goes where you want it to go, and when we have all this drought stuff, you can be proud to say, I'm conserving water, I'm not wasting it, I'm only putting where it has to be. And so but it's also, the more important thing is it settles the dirt around the root area, or the roots, which won't happen if you just leave it alone and use some other system like drip systems and stuff like that. So that's the other key thing. All right, let's see, what else do we have? Well, that's about it. Now, what we're going to have for the drawing, what we've done here on purpose is that these are zigzag. In other words, this one's going this direction, and this variety is going that direction. And keep them in that order, because if you start picking them up, then they get mixed up, the varieties here. That's the reason we have zigzagged them. Understood? Okay? So you don't have them, where is what is what? It's all mixed up with something else. This way they sort of, and we don't have to do anything special. See, I mean, this is high-tech stuff, Yeah.
We don't have acidic soil over where we live.
Yeah.
What do you recommend to put in the the soil to make it more acidic?
Well, the typical thing you have done in the past, of course, is use the traditional RCA, the rhododendron camellia, because it's a little bit on the acidic side. And that's an easy, readily available
The
source of it.
fertilizer.
Well, it would, and like I was told, I would explain to you, but with my thing so damn acidic, I had to put, and this was experts telling me, the ammonia sulfate, which is like whatever it is, 70% or something, nitrogen or something, which surprised me and it worked. They know what they're talking about. They're an expert for some reason. All right, what's the time schedule? All right, so I guess that's it. You know what's here. We'll go through the drawing and probably more than one time, even though there are 40 people. There's more than 40 plants up here. All right?
Are you gonna talk about any of them specifically?
No.
Because-
What you have up here, I have one catalog and one only. If you want to look, you can look at what they look like. And the reason is, this is the final catalog of Bayview Gardens this year. This one. And there are descriptions of what's up here. And I'm not going to spend time here telling you what they look like.
So if we want a catalog, can we?
You'll have to pay for it.
Yeah. So can we get it through email?
No, I don't do email. I'm old fashioned.
Okay.
I don't know this fancy high-tech stuff.
All the rest of these are your creations.
These are all my originations that are within this.
Okay, they
The
don't
black
really have a
area.
name yet.
And their this year introductions are mixed in here.
Okay.
But you can
And
work
they
that
have
out
a
for
name on
yourself.
Well, they do.
This year.
All right, let's get going on the drawing.
Hey, Joe,